Growing up as twins, Eric was always the one who stood out, showered with praise, celebrated for his every achievement, while I remained in the background, striving for recognition that never came. My parents, Donatus and Maggie, made it clear without even saying a word. Eric was their favorite. It wasn't hard to see. From the expensive gifts to the praise for his every move, he was the golden child, and I was the forgotten twin. The moment that defined it all, though, was when Eric received a brand new luxury car for graduation. As I watched him drive away, the weight of the years spent trying to prove myself hit me all at once. I realized that no matter what I did, no matter how hard I worked, I would always be second. But in that moment, something shifted. I didn't need their approval. What I needed was to stop fighting for a place in their world. I was going to make my own. This is the story of how I stopped trying to earn their love and instead found my own path, a path that led me to a place they'd never see coming, one where I didn't need their recognition to know my worth. And when they came back, asking for forgiveness, it was too late. I had already moved on, and the price they would pay for their neglect would be greater than any luxury car they could give. The moment Eric's shiny new car disappeared down the driveway, a cold wave of realization washed over me. I'd spent my entire life chasing their approval, but no matter how much I achieved, no matter how hard I worked, it was never enough. They saw Eric as the golden child, and I was just there. The invisible twin. For so long, I had convinced myself that if I just tried harder, if I did more, maybe then my parents would see me. But watching them dote on Eric, handing him the keys to a luxury car, a symbol of everything I had wanted for myself, brought something out in me. The resentment that had been simmering beneath the surface for years finally bubbled over, and with it, a decision that would change everything. I was done. Done fighting for their approval. Done trying to fit into a role they never saw me in. I would find my own worth. It wasn't the first time I'd been overlooked, but it was the first time it truly stung. Watching my parents shower Eric with praise for something so material, something I had always longed for, pushed me to the edge. I had always known my family favored him, but this was different. This was a reminder that, no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough. Eric was always the one who got the accolades, the recognition, the admiration. It started when we were kids. From the moment we were born, it seemed like the world had already chosen him. He was the charming, easygoing twin. People couldn't help but love him. He had that smile, that effortless confidence. Meanwhile, I had always been the quieter one, the one who had to work harder to be seen, to be noticed. Our parents, Donatus and Maggie, played along, always treating him like the center of the universe. He was the one who got the new shoes, the nicer clothes, the larger slice of cake on his birthday. Even when we were little, it felt like they saw me as a backdrop to his life. It wasn't intentional, at least, not on their part, but it was a truth I couldn't ignore. Eric's achievements were always celebrated in grand style. When he got straight A's, it was a family event. He'd be showered with praise, accolades, and even a special trip or dinner out. I, on the other hand, did well in school too, but my grades were just expected. No one threw a party when I brought home a perfect report card. And when I won a district science competition in middle school, my reward was a quiet, "good job," as Mom sent me to clean my room. Meanwhile, Eric had been given a new set of golf clubs to celebrate his flawless performance in the school play. It wasn't just in school, it was everywhere. At family gatherings, Eric was always the star. He made everyone laugh, told the best stories, and had people hanging on his every word. Me? I was often left standing on the sidelines, holding my drink and trying not to make eye contact. I didn't mind being quieter, but the lack of attention became glaring as the years went on. The deeper we got into our teenage years, the clearer it became. Eric was the one they were proud of. Eric was the one who mattered. One day, I overheard a conversation between my parents. I was 12, sitting on the stairs, pretending to do my homework while I eavesdropped. They didn't know I was listening. "You know, Maggie," Dad said, his voice low, "Eric's got something special. He's got that spark." Maggie's voice followed. "He's going places, Dawn. He's got the look, the charm, and he's smart. He'll be something big one day." My stomach twisted. "And what about Millie?" I wanted to shout. I wanted to ask why they never said the same about me. But I stayed silent. "Millie is good. She's a good kid. But she doesn't have the same drive, the same personality. She's more quiet. She'll be fine, Mom said with an air of finality. That was the first time I really understood it. I wasn't just the quieter twin. I wasn't just the one who got overlooked. I was the backup twin, the one who could go unnoticed because, in their eyes, Eric was the one who truly mattered. I didn't want to be invisible anymore, but for years, I kept pushing that feeling down, burying it beneath the surface. I focused on school. I focused on doing everything right. I hoped that if I achieved enough, worked hard enough, maybe they'd see me. But every time I succeeded, Eric's accomplishments were seen as something greater. Even when I got accepted into a prestigious high school program, something I had worked for since middle school, the excitement wasn't the same. "Oh, that's nice, Millie," Dad had said, barely looking up from his newspaper. Meanwhile, Eric was being asked about his future plans for college, his summer job, his social life. I was invisible. So, when I watched Eric drive away that day, his new car gleaming in the sunlight, I realized something. I would never be enough for them. But maybe, just maybe, I didn't need to be. Maybe I needed to stop fighting for their approval. Maybe I needed to start fighting for myself. It had been years since I'd seen Nicole. The last time we spoke, we were both standing at the threshold of adulthood, unsure of the future, but still hopeful in our own way. She had always been the one who truly saw me when I felt invisible to the rest of the world. Nicole never treated me like the forgotten twin. She treated me like a person with potential, with dreams that weren't bound by the suffocating expectations of my family. So, when I saw her name flash across my phone one evening, my heart skipped a beat. It had been years since we'd kept in touch regularly, but that bond we shared, forged in late-night talks and shared ambitions, had never really faded. "Millie." Her voice rang out with excitement when I answered, as if no time had passed at all. "How are you? I was just thinking about you the other day." "I'm good, Nicole," I replied, smiling despite myself. "It's been a while. How's everything?" We chatted for a few minutes about life, careers, and where we had both ended up. She had moved to New York to pursue her dreams in graphic design, while I had stayed in Middleton for a while, trying to figure out who I was without the weight of family expectations constantly pressing down on me. Eventually, the conversation turned to a more familiar topic: my struggles with my family. "You sound a little down," Nicole noted, her voice softening. "What's going on?" I hesitated, unsure of how to frame it. In the years since high school, I'd learned to hide my frustrations, especially when it came to family. They always felt like something I had to manage on my own. But Nicole had always been the person I could turn to, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe I needed her. "I don't know, Nicole," I began, my voice wavering slightly. "I'm just so tired. Tired of feeling like I don't matter. My parents, they just always focus on Eric. He gets everything. And I'm just here, you know?" Nicole was quiet for a moment, but I could hear the empathy in her tone when she spoke again. "Millie, you are so much more than that. You're not just here. You've got so much to offer. You just need to see it yourself." I sighed, leaning against the window of my apartment. I don't even know where to start anymore. Every time I try to do something, it feels like it's not enough. Eric gets everything handed to him on a silver platter. It's like I'm invisible. "I get it," she said gently. "But that's exactly why you need to stop looking at your parents for validation. You've got something inside of you, Millie. You've always had it. You've always had that creative spark. Remember how much you loved storytelling in high school? You've got to pursue it. You're not just the second twin. You're you. And you're more than capable of doing something incredible." Her words resonated deeply with me, stirring up a mix of emotions. I had always been passionate about storytelling, even though I pushed those dreams aside, thinking they weren't practical. I loved movies. I loved how they made people feel, how they could change the way you saw the world. But I had buried those dreams under the weight of being the overlooked twin, the one who had to work hard just to be seen. "Maybe it's too late for that," I murmured, doubts creeping back into my voice. "I've always thought about it, but I don't know if I'm good enough to actually make it." Nicole's response was immediate, no. Hesitation in her words. "Millie, stop that. You've got everything it takes. I know you've always dreamed of something more. You just need to believe in yourself like I've always believed in you. I see it, Millie. You've got talent. You just need to show the world." Her words were like a lifeline thrown to me from the other side of the world. Nicole was the one person who always saw me, who never let me be just a backdrop to someone else's success. She saw my potential, and for the first time in years, I could almost see it too. I let out a slow breath, the weight on my chest lightening ever so slightly. But what if I fail? You won't fail if you don't try. And if you try, you'll learn something either way. You'll be one step closer to finding what you're truly meant to do. Look, there's a film festival coming up in New York. It's a big one. There's a director who's known for scouting fresh talent there, and I know you could make an impression. My heart skipped. A film festival? A director scouting talent? I had heard of such things before, but I always thought they were beyond me, something that only happened for the chosen ones, like Eric, who seemed to get every opportunity handed to him. But now, hearing Nicole say it, something shifted inside me. Maybe this was my chance. Maybe this was the door I had been waiting for, the one I didn't know I needed until now. You really think I should go? I asked, my voice soft but tinged with hope. I know you should, Nicole replied confidently. This is your chance, Millie. Don't let the fear of what's comfortable hold you back anymore. Go to that festival. See where it leads. You've got nothing to lose. I paused for a long moment, taking in her words. Could I really do this? Could I step out of the shadow I had lived in for so long and pursue the one thing that had always sparked joy in me? I didn't know for sure, but for the first time in ages, I felt a flicker of excitement. Okay, I said finally, the words coming out more easily than I expected. I'll do it. I'll go to the festival. Nicole's voice broke into a wide grin. That's the spirit. I'm so proud of you, Millie. You've got this. As I hung up the phone, a sense of clarity washed over me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control of my own story, not letting anyone else decide who I was or what I could be. I wasn't just Millie, the second twin. I was Millie, the one with a dream, and I was finally ready to chase it. The night before the film festival, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in my hotel room, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. This was it. The opportunity I had been waiting for my entire life, but I couldn't stop thinking about the years of self-doubt that had held me back. My mind kept playing tricks on me, asking if I was good enough, if I belonged here at all. I hadn't told my parents about this trip. They wouldn't understand. They would have dismissed it as a waste of time, just another one of my phases. I knew they wouldn't be proud, not the way they had been with Eric, but I didn't care, not anymore. This was for me. I looked in the mirror, my reflection staring back at me. The girl in the mirror was different than the one I used to see. She wasn't the quiet, overlooked twin anymore. She was someone who had made the decision to take control of her own future, to carve out her own path without relying on anyone else's validation. She was about to walk into the world of film, a world where her voice and her vision mattered. Nicole had encouraged me to embrace this moment, to stop questioning myself. Millie, the world needs to see you, she had said. You need to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. It was her belief in me that had kept me going this far. I took a deep breath, adjusted the collar of my jacket, and stepped out into the jacket, cool night air. The festival was just a short walk away, and with each step, I felt a surge of excitement and nerves, both mixing together in a cocktail of adrenaline. The energy around me was electric, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged. The crowd was filled with filmmakers, producers, and industry professionals, all of them buzzing with anticipation. This was their world, and I was about to enter it. The venue was a sleek, modern theater, its glass windows reflecting the city lights. Inside, it was a vibrant sea of faces, all focused on the screenings of the latest films. As I moved through the crowd, I marveled at the diversity of people here, artists, storytellers, and dreamers, all brought together by their love of film. For once, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like I was in the right place. I found my seat just in time for the screening to start. The film was mesmerizing, a raw, powerful narrative that stayed with you long after the credits rolled. It was exactly the kind of film I wanted to be a part of. As the lights came back on, I felt my heart race. I was more certain than ever that this was what I wanted to do with my life. After the screening, people began to gather in small groups to discuss the film. I lingered at the edge of the crowd, unsure of how to approach anyone. I wasn't used to putting myself out there, but tonight, something inside me pushed me to take the leap. That's when I saw him, director James Hawke, a name I recognized from countless films I'd watched growing up. He was standing by the bar, chatting with a group of filmmakers, but his eyes were scanning the room. I could feel an odd sense of fate in the air, as though everything had led me to this moment. Without thinking, I walked over to him. "Excuse me, Mr. Hawk," I said, my voice trembling slightly. I just wanted to say how much I admire your work. Your films have inspired me to pursue a career in storytelling." He turned to me, his gaze sharp but friendly. "Well, thank you. That's always nice to hear. What's your name?" "Millie Harper," I replied, swallowing my nerves. "I'm just starting out in the film industry. I've always loved stories, how they can change the way we see the world." He smiled, his eyes softening. "That's the spirit. Stories are what make this world interesting." We talked for a few more minutes, and before I knew it, I was sharing my passion for filmmaking with him, telling him about my dreams of becoming a writer and director. The conversation flowed naturally, and for the first time in ages, I felt completely seen. This wasn't just a casual conversation. It was the kind of connection I had been waiting for my entire life. Then, to my shock, he said, "I've been looking for someone to help with my next project. It's a small but important role, and I think you might be just what I'm looking for. Would you be interested in an internship with my production company?" The world seemed to stop for a moment. Did he just offer me an internship? My mind raced as I processed his words. This was the moment I had been waiting for. This wasn't just a dream anymore. It was real. It was my chance to prove myself, not just to him, but to myself. Yes, I would love that," I said, my voice a little breathless. He chuckled at my enthusiasm. "Great. I'll have my assistant send you the details. We can start next month." As he walked away to join his colleagues, I stood there in a daze, my heart pounding in my chest. I had done it. I had stepped into the world I had always dreamed of, and I had been recognized for what I could offer. It wasn't just a chance to work on a film. It was a chance to finally be seen, to be valued for my talents instead of being compared to someone else. The reality of the moment set in, and I could hardly contain the rush of emotions that surged through me. It wasn't just the opportunity. It was the validation, the recognition that I had always craved but never received from my family. I had worked my whole life to prove I was worthy, and now, for the first time, I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. This was about me. I stepped outside to catch my breath, the cool night air soothing my racing heart. I pulled out my phone and sent Nicole a quick message. "You won't believe this. I just got an internship offer from James Hawk." Within seconds, my phone buzzed with her reply. "I knew it. I'm so proud of you, Millie." I smiled, feeling her joy and pride echoing through the screen. Nicole had believed in me when no one else did, and now, here I was on the cusp of something new, something I had worked so hard for. This was my moment. This was my breakthrough. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in the shadow of someone else. I was finally standing on my own, ready to make my mark on the world, and no one could take that away from me. The first few months of my internship felt like a whirlwind. Every day, I was learning something new, whether it was the intricacies of script writing, the flow of production meetings, or the delicate balance of managing creative personalities. I quickly became known in the industry as a hard-working, reliable young assistant, and opportunities seemed to open up at every turn. I started getting calls from independent filmmakers and producers who had heard my name through word of mouth. The most exciting call came from an up-and-coming director who had seen one of the scripts I had worked on. He wanted me to help him with his next film, a small indie project that had the potential to make a big splash in the festival circuit. It was my first real taste of what I had always dreamed of, and it felt like I was finally on my way to carving out a place for myself in the world of film. I was beginning to feel a sense of belonging I'd never experienced before, a feeling that had been so elusive in my childhood. This wasn't just about getting validation. It was about proving to myself that I could do something extraordinary. I wasn't just Millie, the quiet twin, anymore. I was Millie, a writer and aspiring filmmaker with a voice that was finally being heard. But even as my career started to take off, my family remained blissfully unaware of my growing success. I stopped calling them as much, stopped seeking their approval or sharing my victories. When I did speak to them, it was mostly small talk. My parents were still caught up in Eric's world, still enamored with his latest achievements and the life he was building. They still didn't see me, even though I was starting to make waves in a world they couldn't understand. I hadn't planned on distancing myself from them. It just seemed to happen naturally as I became more consumed with my career. It wasn't that I didn't love my family, it was just that I didn't need them in the same way I once had. I had spent so many years trying to earn their approval. But now, I was finding my own sense of validation, my own purpose. One evening, while I was scrolling through my emails in my small apartment in Los Angeles, I got a message from an old family friend. It was from Aunt Linda, who had always been the only one who truly acknowledged my accomplishments. She was reaching out to let me know that Eric had just signed a major contract with a well-known company and would be moving to New York for his career. The message was a proud update, and as I read it, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of something, maybe resentment, maybe indifference. I hadn't even told them about the film festival project. They still had no idea about the director I was working with, or the progress I had made in the industry. It was as if my world and theirs had drifted so far apart, and I realized just how little they had noticed my growth. As I mulled over the message, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Eric, the first one in months. His tone was familiar, almost too casual, but there was a hint of tension in his words. Eric, hey Millie, I know you've been busy. I just wanted to check in. Heard you're doing pretty well in the film industry. Congrats, I guess. But, seriously, why haven't you been in touch? It's been forever. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Was he jealous? He had everything. His life was laid out for him, paved by our parents' expectations, while I had been fighting for every little win. Yet here he was, reaching out, seemingly bothered that I had been too busy for him. What did he expect? For me to continue sitting in the background, waiting for his approval? I took a deep breath and typed a response, my fingers moving faster than I expected. Millie, thanks, Eric. I've just been focused on my work. Things are moving pretty fast for me here, but I'll reach out when I have the time. Hope you're doing well. I hit send and put my phone down. It felt like a small victory, a step toward the independence I was carving for myself. I wasn't going to let Eric or anyone else control how I defined myself anymore. As the weeks passed, I dove deeper into my work. The indie film project had taken off, and soon I was helping with script rewrites, overseeing auditions, and assisting on set. Every moment I spent working on the film reminded me of how far I had come. I wasn't just learning anymore. I was contributing, creating, and making a real impact. Yet despite the excitement of my career, I couldn't shake the feeling that Eric was becoming more and more distant. The texts from him grew less frequent, and when we did speak, there was an edge to his voice. He never outright said it, but I could feel it. He was starting to resent me. I wasn't sure if it was my growing success or the fact that he had always been the center of attention, but something about my independence seemed to threaten him. It wasn't just that he felt jealous of my career, it was deeper than that. Eric had always been the golden child, the one everyone admired. But I was no longer the background character. I was finally the lead in my own life, and I think that scared him. One evening, I got a call from my mother. I hadn't heard from her in weeks, and I could tell by her tone that something was off. Millie, we need to talk, she said, her voice tight. About what? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. About you. About your career. We've heard things, Millie. People are talking. Your father and I don't understand why you're doing all of this. So far from home. You've changed. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. They were disappointed. They didn't understand why I was pursuing something so unreliable, something that didn't guarantee the same kind of success they had mapped out for me. I had spent my entire life trying to prove my worth to them, but now I realized that I didn't need their approval anymore. I haven't changed, Mom. I've just stopped living for you, I said, my voice steady but filled with a quiet resolve. I'm doing this for me. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. We just want the best for you. I know, but the best for me isn't the same as the best for you, I replied, my words final. As I hung up the phone, I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. My family had always been there, but not in the way I needed. The truth was that my success didn't depend on their validation anymore. It didn't depend on Eric's approval or my parents' expectations. I was enough on my own, and in that moment, I knew that I was finally free from the shadows, free from the need to prove my worth to anyone except myself. I was ready to face whatever came next, not as the overlooked twin, but as Millie, the filmmaker, the storyteller, and the woman who had earned her place in the world. It had been months since I had last spoken to my parents. My focus had shifted entirely to my work in the film industry, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was moving forward without the weight of my family's expectations pulling me back. The texts and calls from my mother had dwindled, and while part of me had missed the connection, another part was relieved to be free of their judgment. But everything changed one afternoon when I received a call from my father, Donatus. His voice, usually stern and controlled, sounded different, less certain, more tentative. "Millie," he said, his tone softer than usual. "We need to talk. Can you come home for a visit?" A strange mixture of emotions washed over me. My first instinct was to decline. After all, what could they possibly want now? They'd ignored my accomplishments for years, and I had finally come to terms with the fact that they would never truly understand the person I had become. But something in my father's voice made me pause. Maybe they were trying to reach out. Maybe they had finally recognized the distance between us. "I'll come," I said, my voice guarded. When I arrived at the family home in Middleton, the house felt just as I remembered, familiar but distant, a place where the walls held more memories of neglect than love. My parents greeted me at the door, but there was an awkwardness between us. We made small talk for a few minutes, and I could tell that both Donatus and Maggie were hesitating, unsure of how to approach me. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my mother spoke. "Millie," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "We've been talking. About everything. About you. About your future. We've realized that we've made some mistakes." She paused, glancing at my father for support. "We've been so focused on Eric. We didn't see what we were doing to you." I stayed quiet, processing her words. My heart didn't leap with excitement, as I had expected. Instead, I felt a deep sadness. My parents had seen my struggle for years, but only now, when I had become successful on my own, did they seem to recognize their neglect. They had been blind to my pain all this time, and now their words felt like an attempt to patch up a wound that had already begun to heal without them. "We want to make things right," Donatus added, his voice thick with what seemed like guilt. "We want to show you how proud we are of you, Millie. We've arranged something for you." My curiosity piqued, but I couldn't help the skepticism that bubbled up inside me. I didn't know what they could offer me that would make up for years of being overlooked. And when they led me into the garage, I felt a lump form in my throat. There, in the dim light, stood a sleek, polished luxury car just like the one they had given Eric a few years ago when he graduated. "This is for you, Millie," Maggie said, her voice filled with false cheer. "We know you've worked so hard, and we think you deserve this. It's a small gesture, but we hope it shows how much we care." I stared at the car in front of me, feeling a wave of indifference wash over me. The car was beautiful, no doubt, but it meant nothing to me. I had spent so many years chasing after their approval, hoping that they would finally see me for who I was. But now, standing here, I realized that a material gesture could never fill the emotional void they had created. I forced a smile, my emotions carefully hidden behind the mask I had perfected over the years. "Thank you," I said quietly, but my words didn't carry the warmth I once thought they would. "But I don't need a car. I'm not interested in things like that anymore." Maggie's face faltered, the smile slipping from her lips. "Millie, this is more than just a car. It's a symbol of how much we love you, a way for us to finally show you that we care." I shook my head slowly. "It's not about the car, Mom. It's about all the years I spent trying to prove myself to you, and you never noticing. It's about all the times I succeeded, and you never looked up from your phone or your dinner to say, 'Good job.' You never saw me. You never saw what I was capable of." My voice grew steadier as I spoke, each word an echo of the years I had buried inside me. "We didn't know, Millie," Donatus said, his tone defensive. "We were just trying to do what we thought was best. We focused on Eric because we thought he needed it." I cut him off, my heart pounding in my chest. "That's just it. You never thought I needed anything. You thought I was fine, that I could take care of myself. But the truth is, I needed you. I needed to feel like I mattered to you. But I don't anymore. I've learned that I don't need your approval to be successful." The room fell silent, and I could feel the weight of my words hanging in the air. For the first time in my ready life, I was saying everything I had been too afraid to say. I had spent so long trying to earn their love, trying to prove that I was worth their attention. But I finally realized something. I didn't need them to define my worth. I turned toward the car one last time. "You can keep it," I said quietly, my voice steady. "I don't need it. What I need is for you to understand that I'm not the same person I was when I left. I'm not the Millie who needed your approval. I'm the Millie who's finally learned to stand on her own. Maggie looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief, and Donatus's face softened, but neither of them said anything. I didn't expect them to. They could never truly understand my journey because they had never been part of it. But that was okay. I had finally accepted that my success wasn't dependent on their recognition. As I walked out of the garage, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had already left them behind in more ways than one. The small town of Middleton had always felt like a cage to me. It was where I spent most of my life feeling invisible, forgotten, overshadowed by my twin brother Eric and the shadow of my parents' expectations. When I received the invitation to our high school reunion, I wasn't sure if I should even bother going. But something inside me pushed me to return. Maybe it was the curiosity of seeing old friends, or perhaps it was the need to confront my past, to show myself that I had moved beyond the constraints of this place. So, I made the decision to go. I packed my bag, straightened my dress, and drove the few hours back to Middleton, my heart heavy with anticipation. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, what kind of person I was now, or who I would see in the familiar crowd of faces. The moment I pulled into the driveway of the old house, everything felt different. My parents' home had always been a place of suffocating silence, a place where love felt conditional and recognition was only given when it suited them. Now, standing at the entrance, I could feel the years of neglect still lingering in the air. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, my heels clicking against the pavement, the same sound they had made when I was a child, walking into the house only to be overlooked again and again. As I approached the front door, I saw it. The car. It sat there, gleaming in the sunlight, as if it were placed there just for me to see. The same luxury car that they had given Eric all those years ago. Only now, this car had my name on it. A brand new, shiny vehicle, with a bow tied on top. My parents were standing in the front yard, waiting for me, looking as though they had just staged the perfect reunion moment. I felt a pang of irritation rise in my chest. This wasn't the reunion I had imagined. This wasn't about me reconnecting with old friends or celebrating the past. It was about them trying to buy back my love. Maggie, my mother, waved enthusiastically, her usual bright smile plastered on her face. "Millie," she called out, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. "We've been waiting for you. We thought this would be a nice surprise for you, a little, something to show you how proud we are." My father, Donatus, stood beside her, his hands clasped in front of him. He, too, wore a forced smile, but there was a nervousness to his expression, as if he knew this gesture was an attempt at making up for years of neglect. But it was too little, too late. I stopped just a few feet from them, my gaze fixed on the car. I could feel the bitterness rising in my throat, the overwhelming sense that nothing had really changed. They had always viewed me through the lens of what I could do for them, what I could achieve that would make them proud. The fact that they thought a shiny car could fix everything, could erase the years of pain and neglect, only deepened the chasm between us. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice calm but firm. "This isn't what I need from you." Maggie's smile faltered. "But Millie, we've been thinking about everything, about the distance between us. We want to make things right." I shook my head. "You don't get it, do you? A car isn't going to fix anything. I don't need your validation, and I don't need you to buy my affection. What I needed from you was your love, your attention. I spent my whole life feeling invisible, always being pushed aside for Eric. You never once acknowledged my achievements or told me you were proud of me, and now you think a car is going to change all that." Donatus opened his mouth, but I held up my hand, silencing him. I wasn't done. "You gave Eric everything," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "The praise, the gifts, the attention, and I was always left in the background, quietly doing everything I could to be seen. But you never looked up from your phone, never paused long enough to acknowledge that I was right there, standing next to him. I worked harder than anyone, and still, it wasn't enough." The words flowed out of me, each one a release, a shedding of the weight I had carried for so long. The years of frustration, the years of longing for approval from people who would never give it to me. I was done holding it all in. I don't need this car, and I don't need you to suddenly decide that I'm worthy of your love because I've succeeded on my own. I don't need you to fix things with material gestures. I needed you to be there for me, to see me for who I am, not just as a backup to Eric's success. I turned away from them, not even glancing at the car. I didn't need to. I had already built my own success, my own life, without them. "Millie, "Wait," Maggie called, but I didn't stop. I kept walking toward the house, my footsteps steady and purposeful. Behind me I could hear Eric's voice. "Millie, wait up," he said, his tone carrying an edge I hadn't expected. He had always been the golden child, the one who was never asked to work for his place in the family. But now, as I looked at him, I could see it, the jealousy, the fear that he might lose his place in the family to me. He had always been the star, and now, for the first time, it felt like I was outshining him. I turned around to face him. "What is it, Eric?" He hesitated before speaking, his words coming out in a rush. "You've changed. I don't know who you are anymore. You've always been the quiet one, the one who didn't stand out, and now you're someone else. You're making me feel like I don't matter." I stood still for a moment, my heart heavy with the weight of his words. "Eric, I'm not trying to overshadow you, but I've spent my whole life living in your shadow, and now I'm finally living for myself. I don't need your approval, and I don't need Mom and Dad's. I'm not going to shrink myself for anyone." He looked at me, his face softening, and for the first time, I saw something else in his eyes, genuine concern, not jealousy. He was beginning to see that the family dynamic was changing, that I was no longer the invisible twin, but a woman who had found her own voice. "I just don't want to lose you, Millie," he said quietly, his voice tinged with vulnerability. I felt a twinge of sadness, but I knew that this moment was important for both of us. "You won't lose me, Eric, but you need to start seeing me for who I am, not for who you think I should be." As I walked into the house, leaving my parents and their luxury car behind, I realized that I had finally let go of the need for their approval. Their love had always been conditional, and I didn't need it anymore. I was finally free from the weight of their expectations, free to live my life on my own terms. The day I left Middleton was one I had been planning in my mind for months, but it wasn't until I was packing up the last of my things that I truly felt the weight of what I was doing. I had spent my whole life trying to be someone I wasn't, someone who fit into a mold my parents created for me. They wanted me to be the obedient daughter, the quiet twin who stayed in the background, always making them proud, but never fully living for myself. But now, with the last box packed in my car and the empty house behind me, I felt a deep sense of freedom. I was finally letting go. There was no turning back this time. I wasn't going to hold on to the hope that someday they would change, or that they would see me for who I really was. I had spent too many years waiting for them to give me what I needed, and I had come to realize that I couldn't keep waiting for something that was never coming. As I drove out of Middleton, the familiar streets passed by in a blur. The houses, the trees, the streets where I had spent countless hours feeling invisible. It all felt distant now, like a chapter of my life that had already closed. My parents' house was a place I had outgrown, a place filled with too many expectations, too many memories of never being enough. I was leaving it all behind, but not in anger. No, I was leaving because I knew I deserved more. Los Angeles was my next step, the place where I could truly find myself, the city of dreams, of reinvention, of possibility. It wasn't a place I had ever imagined moving to, but now, it felt like the only place where I could finally build a life that was truly mine, a life without the shadow of my family hanging over me, a life where I could thrive on my own terms. It wasn't easy at first. The city was overwhelming, full of people, noise, and lights. I remember driving through the streets, feeling both nervous and excited. I knew no one here, but at the same time, it felt like the perfect place for someone like me, someone who had spent too many years being overlooked. It was time to be seen. I found a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The moment I walked through the door, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This space wasn't filled with expectations or comparisons. It was just me, and for the first time, I could breathe. The first few weeks were a blur. I spent my days meeting new people, attending networking events, and pushing myself into the world I had always dreamed of joining, the world of film. The work was challenging, but every day brought me closer to my goal. I wasn't just an assistant anymore. I was becoming part of the creative process, working on scripts, attending production meetings, and helping shape stories that would one day be on the big screen. One afternoon, a well-known producer contacted me. She had seen my work on a small indie project I had assisted on, and she wanted to meet me. It was my first big break, an opportunity to show someone who had the power to shape my career that I was more than capable. I walked into the meeting with a sense of confidence that had been years in the making. I wasn't the quiet twin anymore. I wasn't the girl who had been overlooked. I was Millie Harper, the woman who had taken control of her life and was carving out a name for herself in the industry. The meeting went well. The producer was impressed with my ideas, my understanding of storytelling, and my drive. She offered me a job as a script consultant for a feature film, a position that would put me in direct contact with some of the top filmmakers in the business. It was the validation I had been seeking for so long, but this time, it wasn't about proving myself to my parents or to anyone else. It was about proving to myself that I was worthy of success, that I was enough on my own. As the months passed, my career continued to grow. I became more involved in the creative process, collaborating with writers, directors, and producers on projects that excited me. I started to feel like I was exactly where I was meant to be, in a world where my voice could be heard and where my ideas were respected. But as I found my footing in Los Angeles, the distance between me and my family grew. I stopped calling home as often. I stopped seeking their approval. The realization that I didn't need them anymore came slowly, but it came nonetheless. The love I had once craved from them was no longer something I was chasing. I had learned to love myself, to trust my own judgment, and to follow my own path. I was finally free from the expectations that had once suffocated me. One day, I received a call from Eric. It was the first time he had reached out to me in months, and his voice sounded different, less confident, more unsure. "Millie, I've been thinking," he said, hesitating. "I've heard about the work you've been doing, and I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you. I've realized something, and I think I've been wrong about a lot of things." His words took me by surprise. Eric had always been the one who had everything handed to him. He had never been forced to fight for recognition the way I had. But I could hear the sincerity in his voice now, the understanding that things between us had changed. "I don't know what to say," I replied, my heart heavy with a mixture of emotions. "You don't have to apologize. I've moved on, Eric. I've learned that my worth doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. It doesn't depend on you or Mom or Dad. It depends on me." "I get it," he said quietly. "I just wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what you've done. And I'm proud of you." We talked for a while longer, and for the first time, I felt like I was truly being heard by him. It wasn't a perfect conversation, but it was a step forward. Maybe we would never fully understand each other, but for the first time, I felt like he was seeing me not as his twin, but as the woman I had become. I hung up the phone and looked out the window of my apartment, the sun setting over the city. I had come so far. I had built a life that was mine, free from the shadow of my past. I had learned to choose myself, to trust myself, and to believe in my own worth. And in that moment, I knew that I had broken free not just from my family's expectations, but from everything that had held me back for so long. My future was mine to shape, and nothing could stand in my way. I sat in my apartment late one evening, the soft glow of my desk lamp illuminating the screen in front of me. The email inbox blinked with new notifications, but my eyes were fixed on one in particular. It was from my parents. I hadn't heard from them in months, not since our last, strained conversation. Since then, I had been focusing entirely on my work, immersing myself in the creative process of producing my first film, a project that had taken everything I had to make happen. It was finally nearing completion, and in a few days, it would be premiered at a prestigious film festival. The culmination of years of hard work, sleepless nights, and personal growth was finally within reach. But now, as I sat before my computer, that familiar feeling of tension crept back into my chest. It wasn't about the film, it was about what this email represented. I clicked open the film. Message. The email was from my mother, Maggie, though the words felt as though they had been crafted carefully by both her and my father. The tone was apologetic, but not in the way I had imagined. It wasn't the heartfelt apology I had once dreamed of, the one where they finally acknowledged their neglect and showed true remorse for the years of emotional distance. Instead, it felt hollow, a last-ditch attempt to repair a relationship that no longer needed fixing. "Millie, we want to say that we are so sorry for the way we treated you in the past. We know we made mistakes. Your father and I have talked about it, and we recognize that we never gave you the attention and validation you deserved. We were wrong to have focused so much on Eric. We understand now that we failed you in ways that hurt you deeply. We are proud of everything you've accomplished. We've been following your success, And while we didn't always show it, we want you to know that we are here, and we're sorry. If you can find it in your heart to forgive us, we'd love to reconnect." The message ended with a simple line, "With love, Mom and Dad." I read it through once, then again, before closing the email. The words sat heavy in the air, but it was like they had no power over me anymore. I had learned so much about myself since I had left Middleton, so much about what I wanted, what I needed, and what I was capable of. My parents' apology wasn't the validation I had once longed for. It was just another attempt to control my narrative, to have a place in my life when they hadn't earned it. They were asking for forgiveness, but they hadn't truly understood what they were apologizing for. It wasn't about a luxury car or a gift. It was about their absence, their inability to see me for who I was, and their failure to nurture a relationship with me that was built on genuine love, not on approval tied to my achievements. I didn't need their validation anymore. My success wasn't theirs to give, it was mine. I stood up from my desk and walked to the window, looking out over the city skyline. Los Angeles was sprawling before me, a vibrant landscape of opportunity and dreams, a place where I had built something for myself from nothing. It had been a long, hard road, but I had made it here. Not with the help of my parents, but with the strength I found within myself. I picked up my phone and dialed Nicole's number. She answered on the first ring, as always, her voice a warm, familiar comfort. "Hey, Millie, how's everything going with the film?" "Good," I said, my voice steady but filled with a sense of finality. "We're less than a week away from the premiere. It's surreal." "I'm so proud of you," Nicole said, and I could hear the genuine joy in her voice. "You've come so far. I knew you would." I smiled, grateful for her unwavering belief in me. "Thanks, Nicole. It means the world to me. I honestly couldn't have made it here without you." "You've done it all on your own, Millie," she said softly. "You built this. All your hard work, all those sleepless nights. You're the one who made this happen." I let her words sink in. She was right. My success wasn't because of anyone else's approval. It wasn't because my parents finally noticed me. It wasn't because Eric had finally decided to acknowledge my existence. It was because I had worked relentlessly for it. I had chosen to believe in myself when no one else would. "I think I'm finally ready to move on from everything," I said, my voice firm with conviction. "I got an email from my parents today. They're sorry, they want to reconnect. But I don't think I need them anymore. I don't need their approval to feel like I'm worth something. I've already found that in myself." Nicole was silent for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was filled with warmth. "You've always known that, Millie. You just had to. Realize it for yourself. I'm so proud of you. You've come so far." I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. The journey hadn't been easy. The pain of my family's neglect had haunted me for years. But now, as I stood on the edge of my own success, I realized that the most important thing was not how my parents saw me. It was how I saw myself. The premiere was just days away, and for the first time, I wasn't dreading the event. I wasn't looking for validation or approval from anyone. I knew who I was, and that was enough. Later that evening, as I got ready for the premiere, I stood before the mirror, adjusting my dress and fixing my hair. The woman staring back at me wasn't the girl who had once been lost in the shadows of her family's expectations. She was someone strong, someone who had fought for her place in the world and earned it. As I walked the red carpet later that night, surrounded by friends, colleagues, and strangers who respected me for who I had become, I felt the weight of everything I had left behind, the years of seeking approval, the years of trying to fit into a mold that wasn't mine. I had finally stepped into the life I had always dreamed of. The last piece of the puzzle had fallen into place, and I was no longer looking over my shoulder for validation. My future was mine, and nothing could take that away from me.